What's up, guys? Welcome back to Living My channel, where I talk to you about how I live my American dream. So today I want to talk to you about how the military is making it difficult for me to live my American dream. Now, before I move on, let me be clear. This is not a video where I'm going to bash the military. In 2 months, in March, I hit 22 years in the Marine Corps active duty service. So I can tell you I've loved my time in the service. I'm not disparaging it by any means. However, it's not perfect. Nothing in life is perfect, right? And that's one of the things I say about the American dream is that nothing's perfect. So the military is one of those things. So I want to tell you a couple things that I've realized in the last couple of years that have definitely made my life a little bit more difficult because of me being in the Marine Corps. So the first things first, or the first thing, I have, lack of better terms, I have OCD. I've never been diagnosed. This is just me. Dr. MD. I like to have things a certain way, a certain order. And the Marine Corps is all about that. I was a drill instructor a little over 10 years ago. As a drill instructor, that's what we hammer to recruits every single day. You have to have your boots in a certain order. You got to make your bed a certain way. You got to wear your uniform a certain way. Everything had a very specific way of being. That is great for the Marine Corps. That's great for the military. It makes things a lot easier. Keeps us all uniform, but it's not perfect. It's not ideal in the real world, in the civilian world. Another thing is that in the military, we are always striving for excellence. We always want perfection. Obviously, we understand can't be done. There's no such thing as perfection. We always say no plan survives contact, meaning you can plan all day long, but as soon as you take action, something's going to go wrong. Something's going to be different, and you're going to have to adapt and overcome. However, we always want, that excellence. We want that perfection. But again, nothing is perfect. But on the civilian side, by always wanting perfection, I sometimes push a little bit too much to where I don't accept good enough. Now, I'm not trying to say we should want good enough, or that we should want good enough, or that we should settle or accept mediocre results. That's not what I'm saying by any means. What I am saying is there has to be a point where you have to accept this is as far as I can take this. Another thing that I've struggled with is having predetermined, expectations of people. Especially in the Marine Corps, I'm around people that are very motivated, very patriotic, fit, gung-ho, just this whole demeanor, this whole culture in the Marine Corps just brings out the best in a lot of people. And when I say the best, I also have to think about the fact that my perception of what the best in someone is framed by what I've seen in the Marine Corps, what the Marine Corps tells me is the best, the way that I should be, the way that others should be. So sometimes I expect certain things from civilians, family members, my children, that don't necessarily align with real life, that don't necessarily mean anything outside of the Marine Corps. Take fitness, for example. In the Marine Corps, you have to be very physically fit. If you're not, it's frowned upon. It's one of those things that if you're not, at a certain fitness level, you're going to struggle to get promoted. That doesn't really matter outside of the Marine Corps, other than obviously health, wellness, things of that nature. But as far as getting promoted at work, how you're viewed by your peers, your friends, your coworkers, your bosses, doesn't mean anything, right? Another thing is inflated ego. Now, if you know anything about the Marine Corps, this is probably obvious to you. Marines, we have a bit of an ego, okay? We talk about we're the first to fight. We talk about how we're America's 911 force. A lot of the things that we do, that we say, that we believe, reinforce this idea that we are the best of the best. When we deploy to other countries, especially countries that are developing countries, not at our level per se, militarily or otherwise, we definitely get treated like royalty in a lot of places. And this treatment that we receive, the way that people see us, forces us, well, not really forces, I can't say forces, but it leads us to feel a certain way about our institution, about the Marines around us, and definitely about ourselves. Like I said, I'm coming up on 22 years, and I can tell you 22 years of doing this has definitely given me an inflated sense of who I am, what I do, what I represent, all these other things, right? So those are just a couple things. I threw out 4 things out there, right? I could give you probably a million more things of things that the Marine Corps has done not to ruin me, not to make me a worse person or anything like that, but just things that happen over time by you assimilating to this culture that make my life in the civilian side a little bit harder. Now, the reason I say it makes life a little bit harder is because, again, as a parent, I can't treat my children the way that I did recruits when I was a drone starter. I can't go home and scream at them every single time they do something wrong. Why aren't your shoe displays aligned? Why is your shirt not tucked all the way in? You know, all these things. Honestly, it doesn't really work with recruits that long. It works with recruits maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks. After that, the screaming kind of becomes background noise to them, and you got to find other ways to discipline them and educate them. It definitely doesn't work with Marines. But even with Marines, we are, relatively strict. There is a sort of a culture where you can be a little bit more demanding, not necessarily demanding, but maybe a little bit more aggressive with Marines than you would with civilians or your children or your spouse, siblings, family, friends. So I've had to readjust the way that I interact with people. And this is one of those things that for a long time I didn't really acknowledge, didn't really recognize until my 2 sons became teenagers and they started exhibiting a lot of the same behavior that I have, this very macho, strong, forceful personality. And both of us trying to do that was not working. So I had to adjust my style of parenting, adjust my style of just being, which made me realize this doesn't work everywhere, right? The Marine Corps is one place, civilian life is another. Another thing is accepting that, hey, people make mistakes. The military, unfortunately, sometimes can be a zero defect mentality. And I say sometimes because that's not always the case. It all depends on who's in charge, who the boss is, the kind of the climate of that unit you're at. But sometimes it can be a zero defect mentality. And that doesn't work in the military. It definitely doesn't work when you're raising children. It definitely doesn't work when, your teenager starts learning to drive for the first time and it's going out with friends from their high school. These are times when you have to accept that, hey, I can't control everything that goes on in other people's lives, even when it's my children. So I have to let some things go. I have to acknowledge that they're going to be their own people. They're going to make mistakes. And I just have to let it go sometimes. And the last thing is that I would tell you is you have to constantly evaluate who you are, what your thoughts are, what you stand for, your values, your morals, your ethical code, all these things. Because as much as I love being a Marine, as I get closer to retiring from the Marine Corps, I don't know when I'm going to retire. Like I said, I'm coming up on 22. I know I'm doing at least one more tour. That'll put me at 25. So I could retire in 3 years or I could retire in 10 years. I don't know. For now, I still love this, and I'm going to keep going as long as I can. But I know that at some point, this is going to end for me. At some point, I'm going to have to put the uniform behind or take the uniform off and move on and be a civilian. So as I get ready to make that transition, whenever that may be, I have to start thinking about what kind of person do I want to be outside of the Marine Corps. And really, there shouldn't be a difference. This is what I'm starting to realize now, is there shouldn't be a difference between who I am as a Marine and who I am outside of the Marine Corps. And so now I'm trying to align the two. I'm trying to find that happy medium of how do I represent the best me that I can be as a Marine while still being the best me that I can be as a civilian. Because sometimes we get too confused. I will tell you, for a long time, I was one of those people. I got too confused. I thought I had to be a certain way. But that certain way, like I said, does not always work on the civilian side. And so it's difficult, and I'm trying to figure it out now. But for those of you, if you're in the military, if you're thinking about joining the military or any kind of organization like this, I imagine law enforcement is probably similar, firefighters, any kind of organization where big egos are a thing, where macho mentality is a thing, it's probably going to be very similar. So I encourage you all, man, woman, whatever, think about these things. Think about what kind of person you want to be. Do those things align, the culture that you're in versus the person that you want to be? And make a conscious choice, make conscious decisions about your behavior, about the way you're acting to make sure that you're leading the life you want to lead. Because really, that's the only way you live the American dream. I'm not saying the American dream is this, that, or the other. I'm saying you have to figure out who you want to be so you can live your American dream. All right, guys, that's all I'm going to leave you with for today. If you like what you saw today, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button so the YouTube algorithm can push it out there, and keep following for more. Deuces.